Hi, I'm Greg Hunter, and this is the weekly news wrap-up for Friday, the 27th of April, 2012. I'm on a farm in Missouri giving you the news from here. Well, first up, the recovery story. It's the story that, of course, will not die. And just this week in USA Today, they have a big story. Where's the recovery going? It's in money section of USA Today. Where's the recovery going? Like, hey, they told us there's a recovery, so wow, there must be one. Despite the fact that the latest Case-Shiller report came out, and again, housing prices are down about 3.5% on average nationally. Atlanta alone was down more than 17% year over year. 15 of 20 cities surveyed are down, and most of the ones that went up just tiny fractional stuff, and they're so far down. For example, Phoenix went up, but its prices are off 52% since the peak, and it went up 3%. Woohoo! Big deal. In another recovery story that they've been pushing, here is, it says the Fed brightens forecast for job and, a jobless rate and for growth. It's in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Actually, it's a reprint from McClatchy newspapers. But I love this first line in the story. The Federal Reserve on Wednesday looked past recent soft economic indicators and raised its forecast for the U.S. economy. This is journalism. They looked past recent soft indicators. We still have a recovery. Even though the indications recently, with unemployment not doing so hot in the last report, housing starts off by about 6.5%, confidence off. If you did unemployment the way Bureau of Labor Statistics did it in 1994 and earlier, yes, the government, you would have over 22% unemployed, where they count even the long-term discouraged workers. The Fed is predicting, and other economists, well, we'll get that unemployment rate down. Sure, I'm sure they will, when they stop counting people who are unemployed or underemployed. Next up, the Russians are training, it's been announced, with U.S. troops in Colorado next month. Why? To counter terrorists here in America. So now, are we going to bring the Russians in if people get out of control because American troops can't fire on American citizens? That's the law. We spend more on our military than all nations combined, and we need the Russians to come in and train to help us combat terrorists. Could they be preparing for some sort of financial collapse or calamity? We're way overdue. All the money printing in 2008 and after just kind of kicked the can down the road. I don't know. I think that's an awful ominous thing. Russians training with Americans to combat terrorists here in America. Well, maybe that's the reason why, according to a new Pew poll, 33% of Americans aren't happy with the federal government. Not a big surprise. And probably the Secret Service debacle that happened, with the prostitutes in South America, probably didn't help people's perception of the federal government. Next up, North Korea made an unusually wild threat. It said it would reduce South Korea to ashes in less than 4 minutes. Now, of course, they're stinging from that failed ICBM, that intercontinental ballistic test that kind of, blew up shortly after it took off. And why they're lashing out to the South, is not really clear. But the tensions are mounting on the Korean peninsula, that's for sure. Newt Gingrich is out of the GOP political race. That leaves just Romney and Paul. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Romney's got it sewn up. Not so fast. Ron Paul said he would stay in it until the convention, and Newt Gingrich does not have enough delegates to clinch the GOP nomination. Ron Paul is the only candidate bringing young people into the GOP. They should be kissing his feet. They should be very careful with Ron Paul, but he's staying in it until the convention, and he has the power, the backing, and the money to do so. Speaking of Dr. Paul, he is totally against the CISPA, or the Cyber Intelligence Sharing Protection Act. They had to put the protection in there. And he says it's totally against the Fourth Amendment. Of course, that deals with illegal search and seizure. And he contends that if the law is passed, signed into law, that, people like Google and Facebook can report to the NSA, the National Security Agency, about the private actions of Americans. you know his backers are big internet people, and they're not hip on the government getting that far into our lives. I don't think so, anyway. Anyway, that's the way I see it. I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for supporting USAWatchdog.com.